seemed like he tried to turn, which he shouldn't have done. Should have just landed straight ahead.
This is Probable Cause.
He should have just landed straight ahead. This, of course, was from the fatal general aviation crash last week down just south of Lakeland, Florida, at a private grass strip down there. Let's listen to the rest of this. It's April 7, 2024. Dan Greider, Probable Cause, and I want you to go straight ahead. This is what can happen when you don't go straight ahead.
As he got off of the ground, witnesses heard the engine sputter. When the engine sputtered, he apparently stalled and crashed directly into the ground.
Until amateur build plane take off at the South Lakeland Airport. Then seconds later, the engine cut off.
And he kind of stalled it a little bit. He put the nose down at first, and it seemed like he tried to turn, which he shouldn't have done. Should have just landed straight ahead, and it just snapped over and right straight in.
And he immediately died as a result of horrific traumatic injuries from the crash.
It seemed like he tried to turn, which he shouldn't have done. Should have just landed straight ahead.
Our condolences to that family and friends down there. The pilot was 76 years old. A horrible situation, should have gone straight ahead. That's why this message of AQP and conditioning is so important. You're going to lose your engine on takeoff. It's going to happen to you if you don't have muscle memory. You will not be able to think in the time of crisis. Training and education are for getting your pilot's license. Conditioning is for crisis after you get your pilot's license. I want to talk about this Texas thing, but I'm going to put it at the very end. This schedule comes up on April 10th. I want to say thank you to everybody that wrote a quick email to the Texas bar last week. I don't know how many wrote in, but I'm suspecting there were probably several of you that did, and I appreciate that. It was effective. Texas bar filed a complaint with YouTube and had me take that YouTube video down. Actually, YouTube took that video down because they said that the email address that I put on the screen was not a public one. I'm not quite so sure. I haven't really researched that yet, but in any case, that's okay. We got our point across. All I wanted to do was let Texas bar know that this is an ethical thing, and we are watching. Because of that, last week I made a tremendous discovery. Actually, I got a discovery phoned into me via an anonymous person. It's taken this long. It's coming up on 3 years since this accident. It's taken this long for all the pieces of the puzzle to finally start coming together. The earth-shaking piece of puzzle arrived after last Sunday night's video. I'll get into that a little bit at the very end of this, but sometimes it takes that long to get the information and for it to all make sense. I'm an amateur videographer. I'm an amateur storyteller. Video production and editing is not what I do. I'm a pilot and a flight instructor, and that's all. I'm on a mission. This AQP mission is to lower the general aviation fatal accident rate. I've done it through amateur video. One of the very first videos that I did, I want you to take a look at this thing. I'm going to include just a quick snippet. If you have not seen D.B. Cooper Part 1 and Part 2, this was a mystery from 50 years ago that I started on. I started investigating it almost 20 years ago, and I made D.B. Cooper Part 1. As a result of that video, I got on a phone call from a retired FBI guy, and because of that, I made D.B. Cooper Part 2. If you haven't seen those videos, it's fascinating. The music in Part 1 and Part 2 is all my own, so there's no ads. Take a look at that very early amateur editing and filmmaking on the part of yours truly to make those. I'm going to show you the skydiving scene. I went out to Portland, Oregon on the 50th anniversary of the D.B. Cooper jump, which occurred November 24 of 1971. I went out there for the 50th anniversary. This footage is in D.B. Cooper Part 1 if you want to see it. It's a very long video, but if you have time some night, watch this video. Watch Part 1 and Part 2. Here's me in an airplane about to fall out of an airplane backwards with a simulated 22-pound bag of money. Didn't really have money in it, but I simulated the weight, the size, and the bulk of what $100,000 would look like in $20 bills. This is me falling out of an airplane backwards. So the whole filmmaking thing has taken lots of twists and turns here, but the whole mission has never varied. AQP for general aviation. I want you to tell you that AQP has to do with the concept of scenarios and being ready for what is going to happen to you after you take off. Once you're in flight, once you get a pilot's license, it's like spinning the roulette wheel. Where's the ball going to land? What's going to happen to you? When it happens, will you be shocked and surprised? Will you use muscle memory and be conditioned to do the right thing? I want to tell you, in the last couple of years of doing AQP flight reviews, I very rarely have anybody that can do all the scenarios perfectly, especially the power off approach from directly over the airport. Very few people can hit the runway. Rejected takeoff, loss of thrust on takeoff. Nobody lowers the nose. No wonder we're killing ourselves out there. I haven't found anybody yet that can fly a stabilized approach. Nobody on square one. Can you do it? Can you fly a stabilized approach? I'm talking VREF, red over white, all the way in and touch the boxes. Can you do it? VREF to VREF +5, red over white, all the way in, checklist complete, fully configured. I doubt it. I haven't seen it yet. Sounds easy? Not as easy as you might think. All the maneuvers that are in that AQP scenario for being ready for this, I'm going to go through a quick list of them here in a moment, but that's what this entire channel is. That's the whole purpose of it. And I'm going to get to the Charles Cook thing. Hang on to the very end. I've also got some dad jokes. We're going to do some dad jokes. And mainly the main reason is because we got invited to go to Arkansas for the apocalypse. Arkansas is one of those backward states. They've just recently acquired electricity and running water, but Arkansas has scheduled their own apocalypse, and they call me to tell me that they've got an apocalypse scheduled for Monday. So we're going to go out there. Dylan and I are going to fly out to the apocalypse in Arkansas. We're going to Heber Springs, Arkansas, and these dad jokes I'll put at the very end. If you don't want to see the dad jokes, just turn it off and you get to the very end. Here's one of them right here.
So that solar eclipse is coming up. Can you tell me what that's going to be about?
No, son.
You may not be in tune with those. They're actually kind of fun to do. They're very actually difficult to do. Dad jokes, the main problem is that when you do these things, it's hard to keep from laughing while you're trying to shoot these to get them done. At the very end, I'll include one outtake from compiling these dad jokes that are at the very end so you can see the difficulty. It's hilarious. But stay to the very end. I'll show you the dad jokes at the very end. Let's go ahead and talk about schedule. I'll put this up on the screen here. We're going to talk about schedule next real quick. Here's the calendar. April 9th is Heber Springs, Arkansas. KHBZ will be out there all day on Monday for the apocalypse. Arkansas is interesting because for whatever reason, they have a strange state law. You can divorce your wife, but she's still your sister, so it makes it much more friendly at your family reunions. Everybody still gets along. That's Arkansas. HBZ, Heber Springs. Next, April 10th is the Texas disciplinary hearing. I'll give you the results of that as soon as it comes in. April 9th through 14th, the DC-3 is at Hampton, Georgia, my airport here just south of Atlanta. I've also got a free crew car and a free car wash, airplane wash. If you want to, all that stuff stays set up out there. I got buckets, soap, and water and all that kind of thing. Either on your way down to Lakeland or on your way back if you want to wash your car. If you want to fly the DC-3 or if you want to take an AQP flight review, send me an email. Here it is on the screen, and I will meet you. If you want to use the car, there's no charge for any of that kind of stuff. I'd love to meet you if you happen to be coming through. Also, I was going to mention in Heber Springs, be sure and show up. I'm trying to collect some footage on this little GoPro camera. I'm going to put you on camera. If you want to say 10 or 15 seconds, introduce yourself or your family, your kid or your dog, any of that kind of stuff. I'm going to collect a whole bunch of footage and play it next Sunday nights at Heber Springs, so don't miss that. April 9 through 14 is we're going to be at Hampton, Georgia. May 9 through 11, Columbia Aviation Association. That's out in Aurora, Oregon. I don't have the details work out on that. They've invited me to come out there. I haven't confirmed. They haven't confirmed yet, but I think I'm going to go out there for a couple days and help them with AQP seminar flight review thing that they're doing out there. It's the oldest flying club in America is out there, and a bunch of the people that I do know from out there, they've invited me to come out. I have not totally cleared that, but I think, just to give you a heads up, I think I'll be out there for May 18, 19, and probably 20. I'm sorry, May 9 through 11. May 18 and 19, the DC-3 will be at Moontown. That airport is 3 Mike 5. Moontown is an 1,800-foot grass strip. I've had the DC-3 there before. I'm taking it back again. If you'd like to go on that trip, I've got space. Atlanta to Moontown. It'll be an overnight trip, flying in Saturday morning for their fly-in, staying all day, and eating dinner with them Saturday night. Coming back out of there, the DC-3 will take off from Moontown on Sunday morning if you'd like to go. In the month of June, I've got several more AQP speaking engagements lined up that I don't have published yet. Don't have all the details worked out, but I typically work on these 2 or 3 months in advance. I don't charge any money for these speaking events. All my costs and everything like that to go to these are all my own costs. It's not a lot, but if you'd like to help on video production, helping me with this channel, helping me with costs associated with this, I don't do any advertising. You notice in this video, there are no ads. You don't have to hit the skip button. There's no ads in this video, and I appreciate your support. You can do that easily right now via Zelle, PayPal, Cash App, Venmo. $1 or $2 is totally fine, and it is not required. I'd like for these videos to be free, available. Please enjoy and watch. If you can afford $1 or $2, that is fine as well, and I certainly appreciate it. We are making some progress. Let's look at the data here. Remember, our general aviation fatal accident rate has never varied below 18 fatals per month in the United States. Over the last 20, 25 years, 18, 19, even 22 fatals per month stretched out over a year. The average has been very, very high. Here's how this thing has stair-stepped down. This is not me necessarily. This is me and all the other people in social media, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all these people posting great channels like Hoover Pilot Debrief, Facebook channels like Aviation This Day in History, aviation accidents, all these kind of things give us real information in real more time. I want to post one quick picture of a Bonanza. This is the airplane that crashed up in Virginia. The guy is fine. He went gear up in a field. Come to find out, I talked to the owner. This pilot and all these pilots that fly for this company, watch my videos. They already know the correct answer was gear up in a field. Instead of trying to stretch the glide and make it gear down to an airport, he circled above an open field and he went gear up, full flaps in a field. And this is the result. The guy is totally fine. Not that much damage to the Bonanza, and a totally, totally safe outcome.
This is Probable Cause.
You know, I've got so much filler in these Sunday night videos because we've gone from having an accident every day down to rarely having a general aviation fatal accident, which is good. It's kind of putting me out of business, though. Don't have a lot to talk about. I'm going to continue to produce these videos, continue to encourage you to be ready. Let's take a look at the April data. I'll put it up on the screen here right now. Here it is so far. April 2, we had November 622 Papa Charlie. That's the one in Florida. That's a loss of thrust on takeoff. Arthur Canning, 76 years old. That's how I opened this video, with that footage from down there. A tragic accident. All he had to do was lower the nose and go straight ahead. Please, please think about conditioning yourself. Don't worry about the fence that you're going to go through or anything else. Just lower the nose, go straight ahead. I don't really care what shrub or brush or picket fence you run through. Just put it on the ground straight ahead and don't stall your airplane. If you stall and spin your airplane, it's over. All the king's horses and all the king's men could not put Humpty Dumpty back together again. We can't do it. Don't attempt to turn around. Go straight ahead. If you've if you had a chance to look at that video that I made on Straight Ahead, a tragic loss of life in Colorado. That's a very important video that I made concerning going straight ahead. That's the theme music that I picked out for the year 2024. Straight ahead, I would like you to think about not dying in your airplane. You don't have to die in your airplane just because your engine fails. So here's the next one. This happened on April 4, just a few days ago. This is called a Davis DA3. I'm not very familiar with it. Kit-built, homemade airplane, kind of old, but the interesting thing is it had a Continental O200 engine in it, normally aspirated 4-cylinder engine, 100 horsepower at the very most, but it had 3 people in it. A pilot and 2 people died in this. The early information that has not been verified yet is that it had an in-flight fire. I don't know if that's true yet or not, but the early information, I did get a phone call from somebody related to the situation that said that the airplane was on fire before it hit the ground. I don't know if that meant that affected control surfaces or they became incapacitated, or what that really means. We haven't found out. No preliminary on this one yet. 3 people in this airplane is nuts. Here's the guy's name that was flying it. His name was Michael Davis, 62 years old. It's happened in Oklahoma. Bad decision making. We should not put 3 people in this airplane. These little kit airplanes like this, they don't have much weight. You cannot overload these. They don't have much of a wing in the first place. Bad idea. I'm very sorry to the family and friends of Mr. Davis. Unrelated to the Davis in the design. The design is called a DA3. It's a Davis design, but I think Michael Davis is unrelated to the Davis as the designer. And that's all we have for the month of April so far.
So just neutral position?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, we're just going to let it roll, see how we're drifting to the right here.
Yep.
I'm going to help you get back towards the center here.
Okay.
EC3 is departing 24 speedway. All right, now bring some power in nice and smooth.
46269, midfield left downwind, 24 speedway.
Beautiful. Push the power up, push more power in. Push him, push him. All right, now what do you want to say?
Set power.
All right, now put both hands on the yoke. Easy on your feet, just relax your feet, you're good, beautiful. Power's set, hold her steady, you got it. You know, I've harped and harped and harped on this stuff. Wear your seatbelt, use a shoulder harness, carry enough fuel. Pick one of these, night, IMC, terrain, or ice. Don't pick all 4. This last accident from the very end of March, November, 960 Lima Papa, I believe that was spatial disorientation. It wasn't quite dark, but it was real close to it. He almost got 4 out of 4. As missed approach, he had plenty of speed. It looks like spatial disorientation to me. Way too early to tell, but very inexperienced, low time, very wealthy private pilot, plenty of money, but not enough experience, not enough decision making. The total loss of this dad and this entire family in this TBM crash in Truckee is just totally amazing. Don't be doing that. It has to do with decision making. I'm going to turn now towards the Texas thing. I know that's why you're here, the Texas deal. I'm going to play a Zoom call that I had. This is a continuation of the one that I did last week with my friend Elliot Stone. He's a pilot and an attorney. This commentary is for opinion only, education only, but because of last Sunday night's video, I want you to watch the contents of this Zoom video. I did not know it, but it makes more sense now. This airplane, when it happened, August 21 of 21, when this airplane took off, it made a failed attempt to take off first. I did not realize it, but the person who contacted me this week said that the reason that that airplane came back in and shut down was so that they could swap seats. That makes more sense. Now they put the Sun up front. Look at the data here. This Sun weighs 282 pounds. That tail would not fly with the 282-pound guy in back. The total max gross weight of this airplane was 1,320 pounds, absolute max. Density altitude 2,600, short grass runway. It wouldn't fly with the 282-pound guy in the back seat, so they swapped seats. Now the 282-pound guy is up front, but the Veronica only has instruments, mainly your tachometer and your airspeed indicator. are up front only, not visible from the guy in the back seat. The guy in the back seat cannot see the airspeed indicator or the tachometer due to the size and width of the shoulders of his son sitting in the front seat. This guy was a 282-pound football linebacker in the front seat. Yes, the tail did fly. The aircraft did make it airborne. Did this airplane have even a chance? In my opinion, it did not, and I was only able to discover that. I believe I found the reason that Charles Cook contradicted himself about whether he gave it away or whether he sold it. In the lawsuit, he says that he gave it away. When he talked to the NTSB, he says he sold it. I believe this was a delivery flight. In my opinion, from the information that I've gathered now, this was a delivery flight. This flight had to work in order for Charles to get his money. I believe, in my opinion, I believe that is likely what was going on. This had to work. It had to fly. He had to prove that the two could fly this aircraft together and that it would work. Did money ever change hands? Likely not. In my opinion, I don't think money ever did change hands because this airplane had to fly. It had to work. It had to be a proven thing before anybody writes a check. The registration had already been transferred. Did funds ever get transferred? I don't know. Charles Cook contradicted himself directly in writing, said it one way one place and one way the other place. Let's jump to this Zoom call with Elliot Stone. This has to do with a couple topics here, but I want you to know that you have an obligation. Number one, if you see something that's not safe going on, you really should say something about it, but you cross a line whenever you encourage or cause or enable something dangerous to happen that ends up having fatal results. That's where you cross the line. Let's join this Zoom call in progress. Once again, in the studio with my friend, attorney, pilot, Elliot Stone out in California. Elliot has got a few disclaimers to make, but he was on the show last week. We're talking about this Texas bar thing and the results of that. I'll give you a real quick synopsis. Texas bar filed a complaint with YouTube because they did not want all those emails coming into the Texas bar. YouTube is extremely liberal on having things censored. Censorship. I can't mention the thing that happened in the year 2020 concerning getting shots in the pandemic, those things, I can't mention those because YouTube will delete anything as a violation of community standards. Same thing here. If you even think about having a campaign to write in this case, my idea was to have enough people write in to Texas Bar and just simply let them know that we're watching. No bullying, no harassing, just comment. We're watching this, and we are going to be watching this very closely. I appreciate each one of you that wrote in. Texas Bar made the complaint, and YouTube removed my video for last week, which is fine. It just goes to prove my point of everything else that's going on here. So in the studio with me here today, my friend Elliot Stone. We're going to talk through a couple things here before we get on to the rest of the stuff. Good evening, Elliot. It's Sunday afternoon here, and you're out there in California. Welcome, and thanks for stopping in again.
Hi, Dan. Always a pleasure. Good afternoon.
Appreciate it. We'll jump right to it here. I'm going to put a screen thing on the graphic up on the screen here for us to take a look at. This thing comes up for disciplinary review, April 10 in Austin, Texas. And here's the case here. I know this has to do with this person who alleged several things to me. Number one, that she was an attorney, but number two, that she was going to make sure that I received a copy of the letter and the lawsuit, which she never did. So I'm going to read this, and then I'd like to get your comment on it. This has to do with the two dates in question here, and I'll make it plainly obvious what occurred to her. Her name is Kinsey Lakey. Here's what she wrote. She said, I spoke with the complainant on the phone on or about October 27th. She's confirmed that at the time of the phone call, I was enrolled in the Texas State Bar as an associate member, State Bar Texas Enrollment Certification. As an associate member, I was allowed to practice law under the supervision of Jeff Anderson, founding partner of Anderson and Riddle LLP. As depicted in complainant's highly edited audio recording of that call, I clearly say that I was returning complainant's phone call at the instruction of Jeff Anderson, my supervising attorney. Now, I'm going to put another slide up on the screen here. This is clearly from the Texas State Bar. This has her date. This is her bar number and her Texas license date of December 3. So the two dates in question are October 27 and December 3, the day that she became an attorney. Tell me the difference between saying that you're an associate member and the words, I am an attorney.
Well, Dan, let me start off with those disclaimers again, just so that we stay on the proper side of ethics. One, I am a California licensed attorney only. I'm not admitted in Georgia, and I'm not admitted in Texas. Two, I don't represent you in this matter. And three, I'm here to provide commentary and for educational purposes only. Nothing that I say this evening should be construed by anyone as being legal advice. Certainly not legal advice if you're in Texas or if you're in Georgia.
Correct.
To answer your question, she could have said, I'm an associate member of the State Bar of Texas, Mr. Greider, and I'm the one handling the matter. But she didn't choose those words. She chose to say to you, I'm the attorney handling the matter. And words are the attorney's stock and trade. I don't think for a minute that, at least in my opinion, that she accidentally said she was an attorney when she meant to say she was an associate member. It's my opinion she wanted you to think that she was an attorney. And I don't think that's proper. An attorney means that you have a license to practice law, and she didn't disclaim anything. She didn't say I'm an attorney, however, I have to work under the supervision of my partner. She didn't say I'm soon to be an attorney, I'm an associate member. She didn't do any of that. It was clear, at least to me, that she wanted you to think she was the attorney in this matter.
I agree. And she concluded the call not only by hanging up on me, but she wanted to let me know very clearly that she was the attorney handling this and that she would make sure that I got a copy of the demand letter and the lawsuit.
I will just make sure you receive our demand letter and the suit that Charles is wanting us to file. Thank you.
Yeah, Kinsey?
Those two promises never came true either, as no process server ever contacted me with this. And she did not take the effort to let me know that she had sent me an email along the way. So that's how this whole thing happened here. I'm not happy with the entire process of everything. And I think this is a telltale thing. I'm very disappointed that this law firm would have an employee claiming to be an attorney and handling this case, a huge case that took in a lot of money from Charles Cook, and they're going to hand it off to a law student that doesn't even have a license to practice yet. The whole thing is crazy. I'm going to put another graphic up on the screen here. This has to do with Texas law. There's two things at play here. Death by criminal negligence. I'll read it to you here. There's two matters here, a civil penalty and a criminal penalty, but this has to do with what we as pilots should do for our brother and sister fellow pilots, a standard of care. Should you be able to say something when you see something that is not proper? And I'm going to read this. According to section 6.03D of the Texas Penal Code, criminal negligence is defined as an unjustifiable risk of such nature and degree that the failure to perceive it constitutes a gross deviation from the standard of care that an ordinary person would exercise under all the circumstances as viewed from the actor's standpoint. This means that there was at least 3 or 4 or 5, who knows? There's quite a few people out there. Somebody had to prop that airplane off. Talk to me about the criminal side of it. And I know that you're not a criminal attorney, but just as a matter of opinion, do cases like this nationwide, do they fall into the umbrella of criminal negligence because the people who were there, who enabled that aircraft to fly, should have known that this airplane was overweight, the runway is too short, it's too hot, and they put all the weight up front? Should they have known this? And what is your opinion on the criminal side of this?
So Dan, as you know, I'm a civil attorney, I'm not a criminal attorney. Criminal statutes can only be prosecuted by the government. And I can't say what the government's position is on this. What I can tell you is that in most states, there is both a criminal and a civil statute on the law books for the death of someone else through unreasonable means. The one that we're probably most familiar with, although it's getting pretty dated in the law books, was the OJ trial. OJ was tried once under the criminal statute for murder or manslaughter. He was also tried in a civil court later, and that was for a private cause of action, not brought by the government, but brought by the survivors. Usually when you have these statutes that talk about unreasonable or reasonableness, the law creates a reasonably prudent person. And then the law will look at what did that reasonably prudent person do, or what should they have done under the circumstances. If Cook was a licensed pilot, he knows about weight and balance. If he owned the aircraft, he was familiar with the limitations of that aircraft. If he is giving them training, he has a duty to know those limitations. And for somebody to egg on or coach somebody to fly an aircraft that is out of weight and balance or beyond its limitations is, in my opinion, negligent in a minimum. And again, this is just my opinion. I wasn't there, I didn't see it, but based on what I'm hearing, it would seem to me that somebody who is prudent and under the circumstances, it seems like there was a departure from what I would call reasonable care.
And on a civil side, if the deceased family, wife, left to raise a family and go on, Mr. Schwantz was only 55. He was a FedEx captain at the time of his death. He left behind a family and kids and bills to pay. What's the total civil possibility in a typical, even if it's a car wreck or a truck wreck or something like this where negligence is involved? Something should not have happened. Somebody could have easily prevented this thing. What typically, this is, sometimes you see these ambulance chaser attorney firms that go after these kind of things for insurance money, but what's an approximate value on Mr. Schwantz's life and the life of her son that was taken if she had gone after somebody for negligence when this happened?
Well, I'm going to speak from California ethics, where it would be improper for me to opine on the value of the case. One, because it's not in California. Two, while I don't practice this type of law, I'm familiar with awards. I read about them on my news blogs that I review. And typically the awards in these type of wrongful death cases are some multiplier of the deceased lost earnings is a big component. So for example, if you're a FedEx captain and you're making, let's say, $600,000 a year with overtime, I would imagine that a jury would award some multiple of the loss of earnings to the deceased spouse who would have enjoyed the deceased income for a period of reasonable time. What's reasonable? Well, if he had 10 years left in his career, it's entirely conceivable that a jury may, if they're convinced of the facts and they believe the facts, that they would award a sum equal to that yearly salary times the number of years that he could have worked. There's also a component in the civil wrongful death statutes in most states. Again, I don't know the particular rules in Texas, but I imagine that there's also a claim by the widow for the loss of that companionship. That is compensable in most states. That's called loss of companionship.
A very sad case. I'm still amazed that this entire scenario occurred. Any common person could have looked at this. The really interesting thing here, Elliot, is that after last Sunday night's video, I had several people reach out anonymously and tell me the actual story. I'm not able to verify this as of yet, but there were at least 3 people there, and then there's an extra 2 people. The story that I got, and you can read this in the NTSB report, the airplane made a failed previous takeoff attempt, and they came back in. I never understood. It says in the NTSB report that the previous takeoff attempt, they almost ground looped it. Now it comes to light what really happened is that they swapped seats. The son was heavy, and he had been sitting in back. When they couldn't get the tail to fly, the son was almost 280 pounds and he was in back. They came back, swapped seats. This put the son up front. The problem is in the Aeronautica Champ, the instruments, the tachometer and the airspeed indicator are up front. This put Macon, the dad, in back where he couldn't see the instruments, and the airplane is still as heavy, but it moved the CG forward enough that it made the tail possible to fly, and that's how they got it off the ground. It also says in the NTSB report that the dad was acting as an instructor. They believe it was an instructional flight. I found out just last week that Mr. Schwantz had not been a CFI. His last CFI was from 1996, so it could not have been an instructional flight. The whole recipe here is astounding, and I'm learning more and more. I appreciate the people in Texas who are watching, who are out there. I got people who are collecting data, taking pictures, and sending me information on this entire thing constantly as it goes. But that's where we're at. It's just amazing that we, as friends, what kind of people would send that aircraft back out to fly is just amazing.
It's troubling.
It's Charles Cook. Charles, thanks for coming on.
No problem, Dan. Nice to see you and Christy today.
And you're not nervous at all, are you?
Not at all.
You're used to being in the cockpit of a very large plane or in a cockpit of a biplane. You're not used to being in front of microphones.
You are correct.
All right.
So that's it. I'll let you know what happens after April 10, this disciplinary hearing for the woman who claimed to be an attorney. This is an ethics thing. She did nothing illegal. She convinced me that she was an attorney, knowing full well that she was not. She did not have a bar number or a license. She did not have a license to practice law until December at the time of this phone call. That's what this is all about. I'll let you know the results of that. I appreciate it. We're going to get out of here. I'm going to put these dad jokes at the very end here. If you want to turn this off now, that's totally fine. We're not good at the dad jokes, but we do have a lot of fun, so it's a little bonus if you want to watch a few of these dad jokes. This is Dylan and I just having a little bit of fun. For my tiny little itty-bitty fledgling YouTube channel, Dan Grider.
Probable cause.
You know, I love telling dad jokes. Every now and then he laughs.
Dylan, do you know the difference between a shower curtain and toilet paper?
No, what's the difference?
So it was you.
What are you working on there?
It's my grocery list.
Don't forget to put tomato sauce on there.
I can, but it's going to make it really hard to read. I was at a restaurant last week. This waitress asked me, she said, "Would you like to box for leftovers?" I said, "No, I'd much rather mud wrestle if it's all the same."
How many paranoid people does it take to change a light bulb?
How many?
Who's asking? Did you know that cows kill more people than sharks?
I'm really surprised that cows kill any sharks at all.
What's the best thing about Switzerland?
The best thing about Switzerland?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know either, but their flag is a big plus.
I noticed last week you turned into a good driver. Damage was minimal. We're still going to have to turn it in. Dylan, I know you're really good in school and everything, but I want you to know what plagiarism is. Plagiarism is getting in trouble for something you didn't do.
How do you tell the difference between an alligator and a crocodile?
I don't know.
You'll see one later and the other after a while.
I lost track of a close high school friend a couple of years ago. He boarded a nonstop flight. Dylan, do you know the difference between toilet paper and a shower curtain?
No.
So it was you. Sorry. Let's do that again.
Okay. I thought about that as I answered it. I was like, I should.